morning.
Well, let's look at the organizational renewal first of all. It's been talked about a lot here at the ANC, a policy conference. Do you think it's necessary to change some of the structures in the ANC? And do you think that the ANC can actually benefit from an organizational renewal?
Well, the ANC is a living organism, and so it has to keep adapting to the new environment in which it is. And so I think the discussion is appropriate. And so it's going to be up to the delegates whether they feel that this is going to make a difference. The question that has arisen in terms of the structure of the organization at the top 6 level was the fact that we probably needed to increase the capacity at the Luthuli House with more full-time officials who are elected into that position, focusing on the specific areas. And so that's one area. The one issue that I think has been raised consistently is the question of ability to monitor the party decisions, the conference resolutions that are taking place, and also to keep an eye on the record of service delivery on a number of municipalities, provincial governments, and so on. So there is a merit in the debate as to whether we ultimately agree with it. It's a matter for the conference.
Well, seeing that we do have someone who has been in the ANC since pretty much its inception, having watched the ANC evolve, from the days that it began and seeing it now, what are your thoughts in terms of, as Mr. Mkhize has mentioned, organizational renewal, you restructuring things like the top 6, having more people, having better monitoring of the organizational implementation of their own policies?
Well, ANC is my organization and it's my life, so I am very much concerned about whatever happens there. And we were all trained to not only to do the job, but to assist others also to do the job, wherever we were. So in the case now of the actual ANC itself, in which I literally grew and has matured inside that ANC. We have gone through several phases when there were difficulties. But as a person who was witnessing at first hand most of those problems and challenges and how we managed to overcome them, I am confident that the ANC will find a way to overcome the current difficulties.
Well, let's go back to you, Zweli. I just want to ask you about the tough decisions that are being made here at the policy conference, because we do know in the last elections the numbers did go down a bit and the EFF gained some support. But I want to know from you, is the tough decisions being made in regards to radical economic transformation and the land question, is the tough enough decisions being made to actually show those people that the ANC is for the people and they will make the tough decisions to gain the support that they need?
The decisions that we have to take are not necessarily in relation to trying to carry support from the constituents. It's a responsibility of the ANC. The issue around the radical economic transformation relates to an evaluation done by the ANC over the years, that the major outstanding issue is the transformation of the economy to be able to deal with the problem of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. And therefore, as part of the forces that have to transform society, the ANC felt that it's important to focus on this issue. And when we go into discussing the economic transformation issues, we have to look at the issues around land, what needs to be done to accelerate the return of land to the people, and what we need to do to make sure that that land is a basis for economic development, and of course it's a basis for people to be able to resolve such problems as housing issues, etc. On the other hand, the issue of transformation of the financial services sector, with the patterns of investment, with the support that needs to be given to black industrialists, support that needs to be given to small businesses, support that needs to be given in investments to rural areas, to rural economies, peri-urban and township economies. All of those issues for us are about changing the lives of South Africans. It's not more about trying to play to the galleries for people to support the ANC. It's about the fundamental responsibility we have in transforming the economy so that it ultimately gives prosperity to our people.
And in transforming the economy, of course, inclusive growth is one of the key issues that you have to consider. You mentioned things like closing the gaps between black and white. In yesterday's breakfast briefing, looking at the BE's contribution to the economy, sitting at about 300 billion rands compared to the JSE, which contributes in the trillions of rands. How can we also continue to just bring that gap down a little bit more and have more of our local companies, not just international companies, but local companies contributing more to our economy?
We need to look at two approaches. In the first instance, we need to engage those who control the capital, the major companies, the banks, the asset managers, the insurance companies, who hold huge resources and decide on the direction of the investment. We have to engage with those. That process has started. We have had a number of meetings where we brought in largely black entrepreneurs, industrialists, black professionals, as well as the major banks and companies. Right now, we're preparing for a major summit where this matter will be discussed together. So the one area is on the side of persuasion, just to say, as good South African companies, corporate must do business differently. Procurement reforms are necessary. Supplier development programs are necessary. Doing business with small business is important. That's one side. The other side, of course, is to look at the legislative framework that the government needs to put in place to deal with these such issues. And those issues are what the conference is going to be looking at.
Now, if we take a look at the businesses side and the citizen side, if we take a look at the business, the people that are in the business industry really seem more conservative, if you will, at the changes that are being made in radical economic transformation. Whereas you look at the citizens, they want the radical economic transformation to take place. So how would you balance that out, giving the businesses, let's say, relief and telling them that it will be okay, radical economic transformation has to be applied into all businesses, but then also telling the citizens that they will have what they want and that it will be delivered to them?
Well, it's a contradiction that's throughout the world. When you hear of people talking about the class struggle, it arises from that same context. Those who control the means of production, they control the economy, are more about, accumulation. And so when they do accumulate, they guard jealously what they've accumulated. And the general population out there also has to argue about the fact that there has to be more equitable redistribution of resources. And this has been a discussion. If you look at the last 2-3 World Economic Forums, where they gave a report about how, for example, the top 10% owns 90% of the wealth in the population. It tells you that there's this huge inequality. The whole world economy has not been able to resolve that problem. So it's a problem that we have to deal with it in the context of South Africa. Unfortunately, in South Africa, it's not just inequality, it's actually racialized. And so it's one of the legacies of apartheid that we have to dismantle, and we have to face up to it and make sure that South Africans understand, as South Africans, we've got a responsibility to create a more egalitarian society, to create a much more, a much better distribution of wealth in the country, and that's the direction we have to take. It's a new way of doing business, and we must understand that South African corporate and South African society in general has to attend to this issue as a South African issue that will ultimately stabilize democracy. If not, of course, we're creating instability, so we have to attend to it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in studio. That was the Treasurer General of the ANC, Mr. Zweli Mkhize, as well as an ANC veteran, Sindiso Mfenyana, who's also the author of a book, Walking with Giants, Life and Times of an ANC Veteran, which will be launched later on this morning. We are still live at the Nasrec Expo Center, the ANC's 5th National Policy Conference. It's time now to go back to our reporter in studio, Matabelo Moloi.